Hi,
and
welcome
back
to
another
show
about
us
doing
things,
and
making
music
and
other
stuff.
We're
Going
to
explore
another
thing
from
our
collection.
This
Is
the Despicable Podcast. Welcome
back.
No, we're not gonna keep doing that. That would be endlessly
It'd be brutal.
Oh man.
Those of you who stuck around this far, thank you for being here. It's the real episode of Without You.
Yes, we are not going to lie to you ever again about what song we're doing without you.
This is one that maybe some of you who may have found me with this video that we did for this song, where we called it Live in Quarantine.
It was actually like very, very, very close to quarantine, but literally the day before quarantine.
Yeah, while we were making the video, our president got up and said, "Hello, no gatherings of 10 people or more." And we were like, wow, this is the last time we're going to see all our friends.
Yeah. So that video was cool. A lot of people found the song through that, but it's a very different kind of stripped version of the song. The real song is pretty aggressive.
Yeah, and it's honestly like one of my favorites, but I'll tell you more about that in the episode.
So we're going to dig deep. We're going to hear the story of how it developed and really just explore the full-on electric version of the song. That was dumb. I regret all of it.
Take it away, Mr. Despicable.
While singer-songwriter John Lewis was a student at the Contemporary Music Center, he was hitting a creative stride.
So at this point in the semester, I feel like I'd been writing some of the best stuff that I had like ever, which was super exciting. And I was, constantly being creatively involved in other people's projects and just really working the like songwriting creative muscle, and was feeling good about where I was at from a musical standpoint. And personally, I was at the lowest point that I've ever really been. And also, even now, I feel like that was still probably my lowest low emotionally.
It's been said that often the best art comes from a place of great pain. If that's true, John's songs were only getting better each week.
So yeah, everything was kind of happening at once. Like for me, it sometimes takes writing to like figure out what I'm feeling, or I guess how I'm dealing with things. So that was definitely the case for this song and a lot of the others.
Earlier in the semester, John had written ironically upbeat songs about the downward spiral he was experiencing with his fiancée. After calling off the engagement came a somber ballad. In the weeks that followed that, what manifested both musically and lyrically was a bit heavier and a bit more angry.
So I rarely let myself get angry, just in general. And writing Without You was kind of, I guess, admitting to myself that I really was. I definitely, throughout the relationship, did get pretty angry. And I guess I was ashamed of that because it's something I normally try to avoid. And I didn't necessarily want to lead with that in really any of my music, but it seemed like something that was kind of necessary. And Without You definitely explores some of the rational things, but also many of the irrational things that I was thinking and going through at that time.
A theme in Without You is John wrestling with loneliness, both in the relationship and now, at the end of it.
So starting out, I felt really alone when I was writing this song. I was really disconnected from a lot of the people that I would have called my friends at that time, and just, I guess, had a lot of pent-up feelings that I needed to express. I definitely, I made a lot of new friends at CMC, but they were very new. I'd only known many of them for, at this point, like 2 months, and there just wasn't the history, the knowledge that you get with, old friends and people who have known you and done life with you for years, which at that point I felt very disconnected from those friends.
John had been feeling the weight of others' expectations for a while now, something that seemed to be coming from all sides.
In the pre-chorus, I say, you thought you could fix me, but I wasn't broken. And I think that's about a lot of things in my relationship, I felt like there were a lot of expectations that she had for me that I was not living up to. But I didn't necessarily want to live up to them because they were outside of the picture of what I wanted for myself. And every time we tried to have that kind of conversation, it just didn't seem to go anywhere. And yeah, I got sick of it. Hence, I thought you would wise up, but I got sick of waiting for you. Looking back on it, a lot of it was probably me projecting some frustrations that I had about like the friends that I had who had that context and who knew us and who knew what I was going through, who just kind of hung me out to dry when the whole thing went down. And I was frustrated that it felt like I didn't live up to their expectations for me, and so they vanished. So really the core of the song is that I had a lot of regrets from that relationship, and if I had known that things were going to happen the way that they did, I probably wouldn't have rushed into it.
Another theme that the song wrestles with is that of coping mechanisms.
There are definitely a lot of things that I could have done better to cope as things were getting pretty bad. Like I said, I didn't really necessarily feel close enough with any of my new friends to like really be super open. So a lot of that just came out in drinking and being dumb. At CMC, it was kind of against the rules to drink. It was that, we signed a thing that was like, I'm not going to drink while I'm here. And so, yeah, a lot of that was really behind closed doors. And, I was still showing up to things, and a lot of it was just something I was keeping to myself, where I was just trying to numb everything, I guess.
I'll just interject real quick and say that as someone who is in the process of becoming your friend and was not fully aware of everything that was going on, but was generally aware of where you were at, it was a difficult time just kind of watching. Clearly you were dealing with stuff that we as your new friends weren't really qualified to speak into too deeply, but definitely we felt the weight of it and kind of at that point started to try to make known like, hey, we're here, and whatever that's worth, like hopefully you'll eventually feel comfortable enough to reach back out.
Yeah, and you and Allison, to name a couple. There are definitely more people as well, but I did start to feel like it was okay to talk to you guys about stuff, and you and I really bonded over. I mean, a lot of musical stuff initially, but we had a few nights where we split a sixer and talked about some stuff.
Oh yeah, I guess I also technically broke the rules in that regard, but it was in service of a higher calling or something.
Of course. Yeah.
While this song was written in real time about his current circumstances, John gleaned the initial nugget of the song from an older idea.
So I actually had a version of this chorus a while back from a previous relationship where the chorus started, "Guess I expected you would be back by now." That idea just wasn't quite as strong. I didn't flesh out too much of that song, but I really liked the melody of it. And I really just had the first half of the chorus melodically. And so when I decided I wanted to flip it, because at the time I was pretty angry, and also I was mostly angry at the fact that when we had the conversation where I ended things, it seemed like, at the start of that conversation that she thought that everything was going to be fine and we were going to stay together and all our issues were just going to resolve themselves. And that just was not the case. And so flipping the script to bet you expected I would be back by now kind of helped me get in the headspace for this particular song, and I was allowing myself to be angry about it.
As we know from the classic Elvis lyric, "Wise men say only fools rush in," a revelation John was first discovering as he reflected on his failed relationship.
In the second pre-chorus, talking about, you're my one true love, but I was falling for you way too soon. That was really the first time, chronologically speaking, that I put into song that I felt like we had rushed into this, and that became a theme really throughout the rest of the record, and a lot of the songs that were written since then touch on that a lot more heavily. But that was definitely the first instance of it.
John composed the song to be belted at the top of his voice. He wanted aggressive tone to match his frustrations.
In terms of the vibe for the song, I was feeling a lot of heavier things, and wanted to take it a heavier direction. At the time, a songwriter that I was really like studying and listening to a lot was Brandon Flowers, specifically with his solo stuff. And one thing that he says in terms of crafting melodies, thinking about like the inflection of your voice when when you're in an argument, things that you would say more intensely would maybe be like up at the top of your range. And so definitely when I was coming up with this chorus and when I was trying to figure out how I wanted to portray things, I was thinking about it in a way of like, all right, the most intense things need to be screamed. And so I put it at like the very top of my range, and it definitely comes off a lot more aggressively from a performance standpoint.
As per usual at the CMC, John needed a song to perform quickly, so he immediately began the first demo.
Yeah, so pretty quickly after writing it, I didn't even voice memo it or anything. I just went right into demoing. And I remember this particular week at CMC was also one where we were focusing heavily on including tracks that we would play with live. And so I had a pretty involved synth line in that first demo because I needed something to be in the tracks.
Here is John and his producing partner Benjamin reflecting on the progression of the song as it developed.
Well, yeah, and I know we got really attached to these synth parts, and I think we actually carried over some of the exact sounds to the record and just kind of changed up the timing to make it a little tighter.
Yeah, that intro pad is actually the exact same thing. We just pitched it up.
Yep.
Praying for something better.
That guitar tone is trash.
Sick of feeling alone. Brandish that scarlet letter. You thought you could fix me.
Did I come in and help you with the drums on this?
Yeah. I had pretty much just been laying down guitars, keys, vocals, and you came in and helped me figure out the feel.
When you expected I would be back by now with open arms.
That's Alex Roberts doing the really high harmonies.
Yeah, we ended up bumping the song up a half step, and no one could sing that high, so we had to cut that line.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things where it was like, we didn't need anything quite that high, but it was cool to have it when we were able to do it.
Yeah, and she sang with us live, and mad props. Verse 2, writing credit, going to Faith Benson. She was in the room when I was working on it. I was trying to come up with a rhyme for having. I threw out pattern, and she was like, nah, have it'll be better. And I was like, oh, nice.
Yeah, and then we ended up making that an echo in the real one.
Yeah, for sure.
Walk me in the hall outside your room. I thought you were my one true love, but I was falling for you way too soon. Bet you expected I was.
So I remember with this chorus feel going to halftime here, I hadn't even thought of that at all. But when I was jamming it out with you, and I think it was Shane, when he came to visit at CMC, you played this groove because I was working on the song at the time, and I was like, oh, yes.
Yeah, there's something about this chorus when we got it, or it just kind of has this big, soaring anthem feel. And it was super fun to play live at the CMC shows.
And then I didn't have a bridge, so I had a melody in mind, but I had no lyrics at this point.
Yeah, and I ended up writing the lyrics, and I don't remember how that happened.
I do. Yeah, we were in the room spitballing ideas, and you were like, what if we did this big, like, Switchfoot or Colony House kind of moment where we take it from an I situation and bring it to like a we situation and put other people in this song, I guess.
Oh, yeah, it's the whole trope of like kind of commenting on humanity, I guess, or like exploring like the thing that you're dealing with in a less like specifically personal way and more of a like, we tend to do this thing because we all have this fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was where it started with the we fall into the traps that we set for ourselves.
Right. I think I was probably approaching it from the perspective of like kind of analyzing where you were at and recognizing that like you were dealing with something that a lot of people deal with where they're just uncomfortable being alone, and you can get into the pattern of like being used to being with someone. to the point where it can kind of cloud your judgment
Yeah,
on a moment-to-moment basis.
for sure.
And to me, the song was already like so anthemic and like was gonna be this big thing. So you had created this kind of musical lull and moment where there was space to say something important. And I felt like for people who are gonna connect with this song, it'd be a good inclusive moment of like, hey, let's take a step back and not like learn a lesson, but like let's recognize that we all deal with this loneliness and we tend to do this thing. And it doesn't necessarily provide any solutions, but it like is just kind of a like, let's come together and like realize that we've got this issue.
Yeah, and I think I was on board with that because it kind of, I really resonated with the message of wanting people to see themselves in this situation, even though, I'm talking from a really specific emotional place. But, I want people to be able to relate to it, and I think that the way you wrote this bridge does that really well.
But you went too far, we went too far. Bet you expected I would
Subdrop.
That's true. That was in the live track right away.
Yeah. Well, because this was our Tracks Week song, so we had to have a lot of tracks, and with that came a lot of subdrops. Here comes another one. Subdrop.
It's funny how far this one came from a guitar tone perspective.
OMG. So there was a thing in the CMC that we did every Friday after our shows called Game Tape.
Yeah, we'd like watch the video recording of the night before where we played the show and premiered the song. And Warren, the director, would give pretty critical feedback most of the time of, anything from stage presence to that song wasn't good to like, what were you doing in this part?
Yeah.
Like,
and I remember for this Game Tape he was just kind of like, yeah, it was good, moving on. And I wanted to know what he'd thought of it. And so I like had a conversation with him afterwards and was like, hey, maybe can you give me some more feedback? And he's like, I honestly like don't super remember. You should just send me the demo. And so I did. And he was like, yeah, great song, great vocal performance, is good.
yeah, that wasn't what you were looking for at that point.
Yeah, I was like, give me critical feedback. And it was like, okay, well, I mean, I guess it's good. Let's take it to pre-production.
And as I recall, after CMC, when we were starting to get the real pre-production for the album demos of this song going, we moved the key, right? Because you wanted the whole album to kind of flow, and this was also a little high.
It was, but I pushed it a half step higher.
Oh, okay.
Because it was from a flow perspective, just the key worked better, and also I just really wanted to have a really screamy, kind of desperate sounding, angry high chorus vocal. And so I remember when we got into tracking the pre-production stuff, me screaming it from my room in Florida and my parents being like, "Are you okay?"
I believe this is where I started to really pitch hard that there needed to be big keyboard orchestra hits on the riff.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
I was not into that initially, but you made it sound good.
I'm sick of
Oh, stop, I'm blushing.
alone. Brandish that scarlet letter. You thought you could fix me, but I wasn't
This one has my like really nasally synth patches from my microcorg in it.
Yeah, so you kind of recreated some of those parts. But then in the final, we actually combined the sounds from that and the CMC demo sounds.
Right.
I just got really attached to every sound that we chose for the song.
Yeah. This demo is also where all of the lead guitar parts came out initially, which really was just kind of embellishing the rhythm and then adding the kind of musical motif that goes throughout and just doubling the melody. So it was really just kind of adding another layer of guitar.
I'm catching glimpses of you in every dream I'm having, and so I don't go to sleep unless I'm drunk, and it's becoming a habit.
I liked how out of tune Drunk was there.
Yeah.
Almost went with that for the record, but decided against it.
I thought you were my one true love, but I was falling for you way too soon. Bet you expected I would be back by now with open arms, open arms. You caught me every time that you took me.
This was a weird song to deal with vocal harmonies for. It kind of took us a while to find where they should sit.
That's true. Well, mostly because the lead is so high, I couldn't really, like, physically sing anything above them that sounded good.
Yeah, and then in this demo, you followed it pretty closely, but just down the octave, and it doesn't come off super well.
Nope.
We ended up coming with a much simpler thing in the real one.
Yeah.
We fall into the trap that we set for.
Of course, you did all the vocals for these demos, so it's just
for the Florida
a crowd
demos.
of you,
Yup.
which is noticeably better than the crowd of me that dominates the CNC demo.
We never learned that love can
Here's a lyrical
lead us
change,
astray.
slightly.
We just chase what we want, but what we need fades away.
There's probably a bass drop in this version.
I think there is.
Bet you expected I would be back by now.
Well, if there is, you can't tell.
Hey!
You caught me every time that you took me down and left me scarred, left me scarred. I wish
Got real screamy in this demo.
Yeah, I kind of miss it a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. I remember this last Hey I was like particularly proud of from a screamy perspective.
and without you,
It doesn't sound like a good scream, it just sounds raw.
I like the one that ended up in the final.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, we spent more time on that one. And I actually, by that point, I had learned how to properly scream, so. So going from there to like the final one, I mean, really the next big step that we took was in talking with Jay.
Yeah, Jay Hall, who is a producer here in Nashville, who we befriended and had kind of consult on some of the production on the record. He didn't physically produce anything, but he gave us a lot of ideas and was kind of our sounding board that we bounced mixes off of and layering ideas and all this stuff.
Yeah, and we started tracking the guitars for one song, and we sent him over to him, and he was like, "No, those sound bad." And so he like came over and looked at our space and looked at how we were doing it, and was like, "This is all wrong, guys. You need some different stuff." And he gave us some tips, and we tried again on that particular song, but it was just a weird one. We were having trouble with it, so we decided to move on to one that lent itself a little better to the tips he was giving us with guitar layering.
Yeah, and Without You's a song, it's got a lot of power chord guitars. It's very riffy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little licks in it. So it was
Very drivey.
it was a good song to kind of dip our feet into getting the guitar tones right.
Yeah. And I remember it was also the first time, like when we started to get it right, it was like, oh my gosh, this is like the best we've ever recorded guitars on like any previous project. It was like, oh man, this is we're doing something right.
Yeah, because up to that point, we'd tracked drums for the whole record. We tracked bass for the whole record.
Yeah.
We had all that tight, and we were confident in how that was sounding. But guitars was the first like big challenge where it was like, we've never done this correctly before.
Yeah. Another thing that Jay had recommended was to have a lot of auxiliary percussion and to have not necessarily like instruments per se, but just like sounds that make it more interesting and you can kind of bury.
Yeah, and on this song in particular, there's the little drum riff that I do when you do the ba-da-da-da on the guitar. I do a tom fill that ends in hitting the bell of the ride cymbal.
Yeah.
Da-da-da-ding.
Yeah.
And so we accented that ding with a couple different bottle sounds just to kind of make it pierce through and interesting and atonal. I think on the snare of one of the sections, there's like a buried like either trash can lid or something that just kind of gives it a little bit more of a wash.
Yeah.
Things that you wouldn't necessarily notice unless I took them out, and then you'd be like, oh, that doesn't sound as cool. And then the bridge, there sounds like there's like a sleigh bell thing, which I remember wanting something like that, but also feeling like we don't want it to sound like a Christmas sing-along moment.
Right, yeah.
So it was kind of helpful to use, instead of that, kind of homemade sleigh bell, which I believe was just like a bunch of like bottle caps.
Yeah, I think we like folded up a bunch of bottle caps and put them in a glass Coke bottle, right?
Something like that. And I just kind of like shook that and tossed some reverb on it, and that was just another cool layer. And I guess also thank you to Jay, because this was a really important song when we got to the mixing stage.
Right. I remember you went to his studio and like picked apart at this song in particular with him, right?
Yeah, I had really kind of hit a wall where I had started in on most of the mixes, but like wasn't super confident on where they were ending up. I mean, this was, like you said, like the best thing we had recorded up to this point, and everything was sounding really solid. And I was like, I cannot drop the ball on the mix stage. I basically went to Jay and was like, man, I just don't even know if I'm on the right path. And he was like, come on over. We'll just pick a song, pull it up, and I will do a first pass mix in front of you. So he like sat down and in an hour showed me what the first hour of him mixing the song would be like. And Jay is obviously like, hey,
He's very professional.
yeah, I mean, he mixed a lot of big sounding rock records that we were directly inspired by while making this thing.
Yeah.
So watching him do that and kind of seeing his process of like not flying through it, but like kind of moving quickly and not second guessing was really helpful. And I ended up for this one kind of just trying to recreate the mix that he did there, and then obviously make some improvements based on some production choices that I wanted to make. But very much credit to him for kind of setting the tone for this mix specifically, and then kind of in turn the rest of the record.
Yeah, I'm really happy with how this one came out. I mean, really, like from the beginning of tracking, this one has always been one of my favorite sounding ones, and I'm super pleased with the end result.
That high octave's kind of tucked in there.
Sick of feeling alone.
Yeah, that was a J note.
Brandish that scarlet letter.
Yeah, you didn't like that at first, but once we got it to sit right, it sounded cool.
Here's one of those harmonies.
But I wasn't broken at all.
It's just one note, but it's super effective instead of moving all around.
Yeah.
But I got sick of waiting for ya. Bet you expected I would be.
Yeah, we simplified a lot of the BGVs here from the original thing. Like, it's really just on the big parts here, like,
Somehow you took me down.
yeah.
That's it.
And then it comes back in with,
Yeah, I wish I had known. Back from the moment I met you.
a lot of the big vocal sounds are really just from doubles and doing it a lot of times.
Yeah, and in this song in particular, the doubles are a lot louder.
Yeah.
So you really feel the kind of spread of that vocal.
Yeah.
I'm catching glimpses of you.
Some cool delay things that Jay
Every dream
suggested.
I'm having. And so I don't go to sleep unless I'm drunk and it's becoming
Favorite moment here.
habit. You tell me you'd hold me.
That's another thing Jay really drilled was like not leaving a lot of space in between vocals. Like if there's kind of breaks in the line, put a repeat or put a O or a line to kind of fill it out.
Yeah, because people, I mean, the ear is drawn to voices more than instruments.
You cut me every time that you took me down and left me scarred, left me scarred. And I wish I had known.
many gang vocals on the record coming up.
Shout out to Shane, Morgan, and Randall for helping you and I on that.
And Delia helped us record them.
Yeah.
She might have been in on a couple takes of this as well.
No, I think she was just engineering, but she was recommending different ways to perform it for each of the different layers.
Another favorite moment of mine. I just like when we run your voice through a filter.
Yeah.
That's what constitutes a favorite part. Bass drop. The bass drops, when we were getting the album mastered, kept turning into big, just elephant farts.
Yeah, they were like kind of overtaking the mix and like maxing out the bus compressors and doing like a big.
Yeah, shout out to Mike Cervantes at the Foxborough for being a boss and mastering the crap out of this album. Oh, there's another extra little trashy sound effect on this bell hit coming up right here. Yeah, this is one that, like, I'm happy with how it turned out, and it has been my favorite many times throughout the process, but of course that changes.
Yeah, it's probably my current favorite, just in the way it turned out. So looking at the three singles, like Worth It, The South, and Without You, they really go through like a pretty dramatic, emotional, and musical range. I mean, Without You is definitely one of the heavier ones, but it also, I mean, that particular style of like the heavier alt rock is showcased a lot on the full project, but we didn't lead with that with the other two.
Because it does go from a place of like this kind of unbridled optimism, and then you get a few tracks in and you get into Worth It, and you're like, things are falling apart, but I'm still optimistic. And then The South was right after that, and it's like, whoa, things are getting real bad. And then this song, which is like, things went really bad, and now I'm very upset.
Yeah, and then the story continues from there. I mean, that's not where it ends. So there's more that unfolds in the record.
I remember at one point, really early on, when we just had the CMC songs, I felt like this song was like going to be the last track of the whole project.
Yeah, but I was not super into that idea because I didn't want to end on like a big angry note.
Well, it's interesting because where it ended up going, like we pushed through where you were at the time we were finishing writing the whole record and onward kind of past that. Like you kind of had to like look into where you wanted to be.
Yeah.
But I just remember feeling like this song was such a like strong statement and was so like big sounding, and going from a place of like uncertainty to like certainty and aggression was cool from like a this would be fun to listen to standpoint. But I understand that that's not maybe ideally how you wanted to.
It was not the place I wanted to take the audience listening to
Yeah,
the project front to back.
that's fair. And I'm glad that you fought for that.
Yeah.
And that's the story of Without You by John Lewis. You can hear it now on all platforms. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know what? We are just days away from a bunch of very cool things. We're going to do another episode this freaking week.
Yeah, it's coming ideally in like 2 days.
And along with that, we've got some video stuff lined up. We've got some releases coming out. So be sure you're following John Lewis on like Spotify or Apple Music or whatever you listen to music on. Something on Friday, something on Saturday. That's all I'll say.
All I'll say is that if you bought the deluxe version of my album, the CD that we've got in our merch store, which is also cool, you should check that out when you get a sec. For you people, you know what one of the releases is.
Yeah, you've been holding on to a few of these songs, but we are finally going to release them to the public. But rest assured, you were the first. You've had them for like, 6 months at this point.
That's very true.
It's another reason to definitely get on board with, the John Lewis email list, the John Lewis Discord server. Check out the merch. You can actually join the Discord server now if you want to get ready for the PARTY we're trying to throw the week of the 4th.
Yeah, if you go to connect.johnlewismusic.com and go to our Discord server, if you go to the channel called Party Planning, we will be there to take your suggestions. We're looking to see what you guys want to do, because we've got some stuff planned. We want to listen through the record. We want to watch some videos with you. But if there's something you want us to talk about, or you want to watch with us, or whatever, go in there, drop your info, your stuff, and we'll check it out.
That's the cool thing about these online hangout things is I know we had people in the last one listening from Australia, obviously from North America, a few from the UK, and it's just a really cool way to just not only like talk to us and maybe ask questions you may have about the songs or get connected with us on a deeper level, but also meet other people who are into these songs and into this record, because probably my guess would be like you're pretty similar people if you're into this stuff,
Very true. And we should all be friends. So I'm looking forward to meeting you guys and hanging out on the date of the party,
which we're hoping is like probably Monday the 5th, but we will confirm for sure on that Discord channel. And if you're not a Discord person, or you check it out and you're like, it's not for me, just stay tuned to social media, because we will also be posting about the details of the party.
So true. So we will be seeing you all very soon
on the next episode of the Despicable Podcast.
And remember,
pop punk ain't dead yet, and neither are you. Hallelujah.
Testify, brother.